Hey, what's up guys? It has been a while, like a long time. Well, we're finally back. This is episode 11 of Just a Millennial, even though this probably should be episode 14. Apologize for that. Been on a bit of a hiatus, but we are back. And when I say we, I mean me, because as you can see, I'm sitting here all by my lonesome on this giant couch. Don't worry, Mike Cherub is still here. He's going to be here next week. He was actually busy this week. Really cool. He's actually helping his parents buy a business, so that's phenomenal. Very excited for him and for them, and look forward to having him back next week. But for right now, we are on episode 11 of Just a Millennial. As always, I'm Mikey Okendo. This is not Mike Cherub, and let's get into the show. All right, guys, so we're back. I apologize, by the way. I completely forgot to mention, I've just been so thrown off. Like, it's literally been, I think, 3 or 4 weeks since we've done this, since I've done this, and since Mike's done this. It'll be like 5 weeks since he's done it next week. I don't know. It's been a long time. I completely forgot to mention what we're talking about. So you're probably like, what, these guys completely lost track of how they do their intro. Well, we did, and I did. But here's the thing. We're talking about, I actually submitted a blog post on this very recently, and it's going to be really cool, I think. It's called Why I Stopped Interrupting Consumers and Why You Should Too. And I think this is a really cool topic for today's show because obviously it's pertinent to the automotive industry. I referenced that in the article. It's really cool. So here's the thing. What I opened it with the article with is, I think a lot of times as consumers we have an issue. We come, and I say we because I don't work at a dealership. You know that. If you're watching this, I'm sure you could figure that much out. I'm not a sales guy. But if you are a consumer, which I am, and I know I'm only one person, but a lot of people have, and the data says that this is what people feel. You come to a dealership website, and there are some great dealerships. Again, we want to preface this. I want to preface this every time we talk about this topic on the show. There are tons of great dealerships. Just last week, Auto Dealer Live went to Brandon Honda, got to interview with John Marazzi, who is the managing partner and owner there. He also is owner of Sun Toyota now. 2 phenomenal stores, and if you go on their websites, it shows. They are internet dealers first and foremost. I mean, obviously, don't get me wrong, they've got hardcore salespeople. They've got people who know how to close deals. They got F&I guys who know how to hang paper, so on and so forth. But these guys are internet dealers first and foremost. They know what it is to be a dealer in 2016, and that's being a dealer online. I mean, look, you got Tesla, you've got all these different companies, BP, Vroom, that you got to compete with, and that's just the fact. I mean, these guys, Tesla's niche, sure, except the Model 3 came out, 325,000 of those bad boys pre-ordered, so that's actually a pretty big deal. Keep an eye on that. But you're talking about Vroom, BP, Carvana, all these kinds of companies, they may only be used car market. They may be niche, but simple fact of the matter is the competition. So, and not to mention, a lot of your dealer friends, the ones down the street next to you, they're doing a lot of these things online too. So it's just part of marketing and selling in 2016. So, getting into that, one of the things I wanted to talk about was what it means to be an internet dealer. John Marazzi talked about that. That was one of his biggest points on why, for instance, they just acquired Sun Toyota recently. That dealer, in the first month that after he took over and after he did some changes, he blew up the BDC, for instance, just got rid of that bad boy. Controversial, I know. And did a lot of other things to really change up the process there, implemented a floor management system. Some of you guys may know that as an up system. So he uses the next up for that. So he did a lot of crazy things, right? first month, and I know this is just one case study, but first month blew that store's records out of the water, like absolutely destroyed it. It's phenomenal. I mean, it was a great, great job on his part. Kudos to John Marazi on that. But one of the things that's unique about him is that he's an internet dealer. His website, as I said before, is phenomenal. But what makes it phenomenal? A lot of people talk about this. A lot of people say dealers need better websites. Dealers shouldn't have the same old websites. They don't look good, yada, 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 yada. But a lot of times they don't talk specifics, right? They don't talk about some of the things that are really problematic. Well, and a lot of these things, by the way, like a lot of times we like to think of them as on the macro level. We like to think of the big obvious things, design, right? We like to think of the images and the cool graphics and things that are like exciting. Sometimes it's really, really simple. Here's a key one right here. Just a little bonus before we get into the real meat of all this. Site loading speed. You can check that in Google Analytics. I mean, you can check a lot of things on there, but what's your site loading speed? Like how long, what basically that means is when I'm a consumer, I click on your website and I click through your website on all the different pages, through the inventory, all that good stuff. How long does it take for that to happen? Like that's actually a really big deal nowadays, especially for mobile users. Anyway, that's just a bonus one. But here's a couple of key points I wanted to make. And the article post that I submitted, I use this as an example in the opening. So, and this is, I understand, worst case scenario, but this happens to a lot of consumers. I go on your dealership website. Immediately, like as soon as actually sometimes before all of the content loads on the page, a pop-up just is in my face. The pop-up is asking me for information, name, address, email, not address, but name, email, phone number, that sort of thing for contact info. At this point, here's the problem with this. I have no idea who you are. I just clicked on your dealership to get information. I haven't gotten that yet to build value in and to build some sort of rapport with you, and you're already asking me for info. Obviously, we all know that that's bad, so I don't want to linger on that, but let's not do that. So you go from there, and you can just get the article here. So you read none of that, you close the pop-up, and then how about this one? A couple of seconds later, you're sitting there on the site, it loads, you close the initial pop-up, you start scrolling through some of the content, and then a little chat box pops up, which, by the way, chat's phenomenal. You should have it on your website. So this isn't a bash against chat or dealership chat. But how about those chat boxes that kind of float across the screen, and then you have to try to time it just right to click on the X, and then you can't get it, and then you gotta wait, and at this point you're just, as the consumer, sighing in frustration. But again, that's a worst case scenario, and this is not something that happens on every dealer website. Bleh. But hey, it's perfectly reasonable to bring up the story, and I think the point of it is this. Even if you're not doing that, even if you're not doing those overt things, you may be doing more subtle, problematic things on your website that are interrupting consumers. Like, for instance, a lot of dealers I've noticed have banner ads set up on their site, but they're banner ads for themselves. So it's not like you're advertising, Joe Schmo down the street. It's not like you're advertising some other third-party company. So that's good, right? It's not distracting. Like, I'm not clicking away from your site. So a lot of times it's good in the sense that it's for you. Maybe you're advertising service specials. Maybe you're advertising certain cars in your inventory that, let's say this consumer's already been to your site before, and you use retargeting to just display a car that maybe they looked at something of interest or something that somehow is within the range that they're looking at. It's a lot of times an offer, and that's great. So that's not necessarily the issue. That's actually really cool if you're doing something like that. The problem is it's really the amount of these things that are getting in the way, and some people are even going to extremes of, in their blog posts, they're putting outstream videos, which are basically, you're reading through a blog and then this video just pops out of nowhere and starts loading, and you're like, what the heck's going on? I'm just trying to figure out how to change my oil in my car. Maybe you're a dealer and you've got a cool blog going, and so you attract some users there that read your blog, and it's like, how to change my oil, whatever. I don't know what it is. Maybe you don't want to do that because you don't want to hurt your service lane, but whatever it is that's valuable to consumers, I'm reading it, and then a video pops out of there. This interruptive advertising is really what I want to talk about, because it's not just something that affects advertising and marketing in the digital world. It does carry over into reality. The problem is it's more of a mindset. So one of the things that the key point that I made in the article is a lot of times we like to talk tactics, like the stuff I was just talking about, the retargeting, the banner ads, the Google ads, that sort of thing. And that's great because you got to know that kind of stuff to be a professional. You have to know the tactics. That's just what you got to do. So it's good. It's good to talk tactics, but sometimes I think we overemphasize tactics. And I think that tactics can become a problem when tactics are your world. They're your everything. And it's not, you don't have any foundation or core values to build those off of. Really, the foundation, your core values, your beliefs, what your business is built on, those shouldn't be tactics. That's a completely separate thing. You should have some sort of a guiding value. And then based off of that, you build a set of tactics. Those tactics should coincide with whatever you believe. So in this particular instance, what I was arguing is that the solution isn't tactics, as I just said, but let's forget about ads. Let's just throw them away. At this point, 41% of people, there's a 41% increase over the past year. Just the past year, over 2015, there's been a 41% increase in people using ad blockers. So that means all that time, all that effort that you took in doing something that traditionally has been really, really effective and great and it's made you a great digital marketer, right? All that effort has been wasted on not 41% of people, but a 41% increase over just the past year of people who are using ad blockers, meaning they're on your site and those service offers, those retargeted car, financing offers or whatever it is that you have on your site, leasing specials that you're putting as a banner ad, those are just getting blocked largely by these things. And this is true for anything that you're doing as well, if not on your on-site, but actually throughout the web. If you're doing banner ads, if you're doing lots of that kind of stuff, the value of that is decreasing. And I think the problem is there's so many marketers out there, and I'm one of them, so hey, I'm part of the problem, right? There's so many marketers out there that are looking for solutions in all the wrong places, like the outstream video that I just mentioned. That's a really interesting, creative thing that marketers have come up with recently. So what that is, if you don't know, is if you're reading through a blog post, in the middle of the blog, which I mentioned this earlier, you're reading, and then there doesn't appear to be anything there, it's just text, and then out of nowhere, this video just loads and pushes itself onto your screen and starts auto-playing, and you can click off of it, sure, but slows down the page. It's just real wonky because you lose your place where you're reading. It just feels very weird, and I've personally never watched one of those. But my point in bringing up that example is marketers are obviously creative, right? We're always coming up with ways to get your ads in front of consumers, to make them more effective, that sort of thing. But maybe we've been going about it the wrong way because everything that we do creatively recently has been interruptive. It continues to be that way, right? That's where the cycle has been going. Native advertising, which is something that saw a bit of a spur there for a little while, is something I think a lot of people don't do still. They like the outstream video, they like the banner ads, they like the pop-ups, they like the quick landing page kind of situation, all of which, by the way, a landing page is fine. The pop-ups can be fine if they're effective and if they're well used and if it's something that actually adds value. The problem with these interruptions, it's not just that you're interrupting somebody, it's that a lot of times they don't add to the conversation. So this is what I propose, and I think a lot of people have already done this. Laura Madison out there, Mike Davenport, tons of really great car guys and car girls do this every single day. But I think the solution is very simple. When you're talking about interruption, if you're talking about not interrupting the customer, forgetting about ads, which is what I just said we should do, and what do you do then? What's the solution? If you're going to forget about ads, you have to focus on valuable experience. That's really what this is all about. And what does that mean? That sounds really ambiguous, right? So valuable experience is pretty simple. It's anything that's valuable to the customer. Well, let's look at what the customer wants to do. What does the modern customer want? Actually, let's just make it a little more simple. What does the modern human being want? What do people want? It's very, very simple. People just want to consume great content. That's it. It's not complicated, right? Like, I think that you and I can both attest to this. We love to consume great content. We like to watch Game of Thrones. We like to tweet about the newest awesome show and the season finale. And that's what people love. They like to tweet about, the TV shows, the American Idols, the newest song, whatever it is. It's all content driven, and all content is something that somebody is interested in consuming. So that's pretty simple, right? It can be written word, it can be a blog, it could be an article, it could be a video, it could be imagery, right? Instagram's huge. It could be lots and lots of stuff. And I think the problem we have is, and I think this is where this whole epidemic has come from, content is way, way, way more difficult to produce than ads. And what I mean by that is this. When you produce an ad and when you make a graphic, a lot of times it's a banner ad, or when you set up something, Google AdWords, which by the way still works, when you do an ad on Facebook, which I strongly suggest that you do, I do them, they work, they're phenomenal, and they actually can add value because you can actually promote content. You don't just have to make an ad, but any ad that you put anywhere, a lot of times it's a video, it's a short video, it's a graphic, right? And it doesn't take a ton of time to produce, and it's something that you can do fairly quickly, and you put a very short message, and a lot of times it may take a little creative time to put together that message, but your marketing team can do it, and you can do it relatively quickly. You use the data from Facebook or Twitter or whatever you're using, Google AdWords, and you target people, and that's great, and then you send the ad out, and that's pretty much all you do. I mean, you just wait for the results to roll in. Hopefully you have a landing page set up for these people to go to if it's something you're wanting them to do very specifically. If you're just wanting them to buy a car, in your instance, hopefully you've got a great site for them to land on. That's for another episode though. We've already talked about that. So those are all great things to do. Here's the thing though. The ultimate goal for you in that is driving traffic to your site, qualified traffic if possible, people who are targeted in your area, people who can actually be a buyer at your dealership. Obviously, that just makes sense for you, right? Well, of course, you can do the same thing though. This is what I think this is definitely my key point. You can do the same thing with content production. If you instead, and by the way, just don't like stop advertising. This isn't like one of those things where you have to choose, stop one, do the other, put all your eggs in one basket. Keep doing your Facebook ads. Like I said, that's phenomenal. But I think a lot of times we have a little bit of apprehension with this whole content idea, with this whole engagement and transparency and consumer-minded processes and that sort of thing. Because why? It's more difficult. You have to. It requires more work. It just does. And not only does it require more work, sometimes it has less payback. Because why? Sure, people, like we just talked about, I think it's obvious that all consumers are interested in one thing: consuming great content. The key there is the word great. I think a lot of times we, as businesses, where we are in B2B sales, as where you are as a dealership in B2C sales, a lot of times we make content, blog post, video, a couple of different things, an image, whatever it may be. We put it out there and then nothing happens. And so we get frustrated, and we're like, I put all this time into this and it didn't work. Well, two things. You can't expect it to work the first try. But the second thing is very, very simple. And this is really true for your ads as well, but more so for content. If you've ever heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, you've probably heard me mention him a lot, but he has this great book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. The concept is the jabs are your content, right? That's the stuff you're putting out there, the value that you're putting out there for free for consumers, for your audience, for your buyers. And then the right hook is the ask. It's the sale. It's the going in for the close, right? And the thing is, I think a lot of times we get in our heads that when we make content, whatever business we're in, that we're making those jabs, that we're then like the consumer is obligated to let us land the right hook, right? And that's not how it works. How it works is very simple. It's just like a boxing match. If you don't like boxing, I mean, you don't have to know all the athletes, but you know the gist of the sport. It's pretty simple. You put on a pair of gloves, no kicks. You just pair gloves and shorts and you punch each other. That's pretty straightforward. You don't have to know all the details to get this particular comparison. So it's just like boxing. If you're boxing, the jab, 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 right hook is the most basic thing, right? Well, when you throw your jabs, it doesn't mean that 100% of the time you're gonna land the right hook. It just doesn't. It gives you the opening to land the right hook. It gives you the audacity to throw it in the first place, right? Because you're an idiot if you just go out and throw it without anything else in front of it, right? So it gives you the audacity to do it. But I think a lot of times we get in our heads that putting the content out there gives the consumer on the other end of the spectrum some sort of an obligation to close the deal on the first consumption, on the first interaction, right? And that's just not the case. So we need to change our mindset with that. All content is jabbing. It gives you the audacity to throw the right hook, and it gives you, by the way, the audacity to throw it with no shame. Because at this point, you've provided value. You have perfect reason to ask the customer for the sale. You've done everything that you can to build up value for that customer, to add to their life. And so that's the real purpose of all this. So I think we need to reanalyze that as well. But so it's really, really important that we do all of this, because for so long I think that content has become something that we're afraid of. We're afraid of it because not only is it more difficult, but it also it elicits feedback. It's not a one-way street, right? With ads, it's just sort of you shouting through a megaphone, and that's fine, because a lot of times if you're unknown, you need that audience reach, right? You need to gain that following. You need to have people to listen to you. But with content, it's not just putting stuff out there. It's not like you're getting comments on your ads. You may get a couple of likes here and there on Facebook, but people largely aren't commenting. They're not sharing anything. They don't even have the opportunity to do so on Google AdWords and that sort of thing. So the purpose of an ad is just kind of a one-way street. Content, though, and content production creates a two-way street, which is good because it drives engagement, and engagement is what often can create sales and create really, really good customer retention. But it's scary, right? Especially as a business, because you don't know what they're gonna say. They could say something bad about you and your business, and they could say nothing, and that's scary too. And the point is, you're expecting something back with content. So getting nothing is also a really, really negative thing for you. It's just a lot of unknown. But I think it's something we need to overcome, because at some point, we just have to face the hard truth, which is consumers are only interested in consuming great content. They don't want to be interrupted. The ad blocking percentages show it. Even though it's still a minority of people in the whole, people are adopting it at a more and more aggressive scale. Apple, as a matter of fact, if you don't know, has it on their iPhones now, and we always talk about on this show, on other shows, heck, people at your dealership hopefully talk about it, and the internet department and management. But mobile is such a huge deal. Apple, most people have iPhones nowadays, smartphones of some sort, right? Has actually ad blocking built into it now, or at least you can get apps and web browsers that have it built into it, and it's allowed on the App Store, which was a big move on Apple's part. But that's a huge part of your audience. If they're on your site, they're not seeing that. They're not seeing the pop-up. They're not seeing that kind of stuff that you're putting tons of money in and ultimately getting probably very little ROI in the first place. And by the way, even if somebody does interact with your ad, you don't always know if it's positive. So it's really, really interesting. I think that the really cool part about all of this, and we're going to see how this plays out, but there are tons and tons and tons of different things that you can do for marketing nowadays. Tons. And there are tons of ways to annoy consumers, and there are actually very little ways to engage with people in a way that makes them happy and enjoy their experience. When we talk about the customer experience, when we talk about the road to the sale, when we talk about all the other things we've talked about on this show, it's, I think, a bit of a travesty to not include this, because this is a part of the road to the sale. This is, if you are a true internet dealer like John Marazi and like so many others out there that have experienced immense success with this, then this is just truly part of the road to the sale now. And how this looks for you, what does your roadmap look like? is super, super important, and it's very important to your consumer, more than you know, and not just to the young people, not just to the millennials. And that's interesting that I bring that up, I know, because you think this is just a show about millennials, but this is a show about a lot of different groups of people, and millennials encompass a large age range as well. But a lot of people, I'm trying to emphasize the fact that this isn't just for us. This is for your dealership. This is for your business. This is to help your whole business grow. So if you stop interrupting, or if you at least try, and then, by the way, this is always just you taking an effort, just taking a step out to do it. I think that's one of the biggest problems we have. We don't want to take a step out. We don't want to try something new because we don't know if it's going to work. Well, guess what? Nobody that's ever done anything great has known that it's going to work. You can't know. There's never a 100% guarantee. It blows my mind how many people, you call up dealerships nowadays, you talk to any businesses and they want guarantees on things. They want guarantees on their ROI. They want guarantees on what you're going to do for them if you're a marketing agency. And a lot of times I understand that because there's some real shady people, especially in this industry, that do marketing related things. But at the same time, sometimes I wonder if we're looking for the wrong things with these guarantees. At some point, we have to realize that nothing is 100%. It just never will be. Any manager or business owner or leader knows that. Nothing is 100%, nothing is guaranteed. Sometimes you just have to try something new, step out on a limb, and give it a shot, right? Just take action. Time is your most valuable asset, so don't lose it. At this point, you're already behind if you're not doing this. I strongly suggest that you give it a shot. And again, you don't have to stop your Facebook ads, your Google AdWords or anything like that. Continue what you're doing. But if you're looking for content production and you're figuring out, how do I write? How do I do video? Which do I start with? Ask yourself a very simple question. What are you good at? Start there. It doesn't have to be more complicated with that. If you're good on camera, do video, do a podcast. Street Toyota does it. A couple other people do it. Do a podcast for your consumers. You don't have to be great at it. I'm not great at it. A lot of people aren't. But you got to start somewhere. And you're never going to know if you try, because if you've never done video, you won't know. If you say, well, I'm not really that good with video, I'm not comfortable, I don't like my voice, I don't like the way I look, whatever. I don't want to do audio either. I don't want to do like an Anchor app or that sort of a thing for an audio podcast or quick thoughts to put out there. Well, are you a good writer? Can you do a blog? Can you then take that blog and message some people on Twitter, see if you can guest blog, send some emails and see if you could get that blog posted other places and spread around? Can you, join other communities online like Dealer Refresh and submit your article to a magazine? Can you, if you aren't comfortable writing but you have ideas, you say, I have these ideas, I don't know how to get them on paper. Can you then reach out to a company who has ghostwriters, and can you pay a nominal fee to say, hey man, I'll send you the article title, I'll give you the base points and the bullet points and the ideas, can you write something for me? Or maybe you have someone at your dealership that can do that sort of thing for you. The point is, there are so many opportunities, and by the way, everybody nowadays is a media company. With your phones, whip it out, take a video, take a picture, do whatever you need to do. The point is, just take action. I think that's really the point of a lot of our videos. We just encourage you to take action, so take action, try to segment, segue from interruption and interrupting your consumers, and you will see a difference. If not in the direct responses, you will see a difference in the consumers when they get there. They'll talk way more highly to their friends and to you about their experience on your website, about their experience buying a car in general, and about their experience with the automotive industry. And that's really what we want. So look forward to seeing you try this and put this into place. If you have any questions or have any ideas or concerns or want some ideas with this, feel free to reach out. You can always reach me on Twitter or Snapchat, Facebook, whatever. Email us. You can always email me as well. mokendo@ipdmail.com. We can probably pop that up on the screen, I think. I think we can do that. If not, we'll figure it out. So you can always check the bio page as well, by the way, on Autotainment. And that's this week's episode, and we look forward to seeing you. I look forward to seeing you next week. I know Mike Cherep does as well. He'll be here. He'll be joining us. We're back for episode 12. I don't know what that's going to be yet. We're going to see. It'll be exciting, and appreciate you being with us today. All right, thanks. Till next time.